And it's a story that probably very few of you have ever heard. And it's a very disturbing story. And we're going to go in a very different direction now. When I was the age of most of you in here, this happened. Okay, so these are brothers and sisters in lay cleric who do a lot of social work around the world, okay? Working for the poor in El Salvador. And they were going to a gathering. And these are all American church women. And their car was pulled over. And they were taken away. They were beaten. They were tortured. They were raped. And they were killed. And they're nuns. And I said, I was the age of most of you, right? And I didn't know what was going on at all in the world. And I have no idea. And I didn't it was just a news story. And it wasn't, the top of the front page of the newspaper. It was a news story. And then Oscar Romero was assassinated. And Oscar Romero was the Archbishop in El Salvador, who, by the way, a week and a half ago, the Pope just declared him to be a saint. And he was saying Mass in 1980 in his church, and he was gunned down right after Mass. And he spoke to a Mass that was publicized, it was broadcast across the entire nation of El Salvador. And he declared peace. And he begged for peace. Please, in the name of God, in the name of humanity, in the name of life, and in the name of all peoples everywhere, put down your guns and accept peace in the world. Stop killing. And he was in particular speaking to the military in El Salvador. And right as soon as the Mass was over, a gunman walked up right in front of him with his gun and shot him dead. And that's him. The Archbishop killed. And so I asked myself, as I'm, the age, it's like, what is all this? What's going on here, right? What's happening? Right about the time I finished college, I discovered this thing called liberation theology. Liberation theology was a movement that began in the 1960s. And this goes out to all Christians. To take the teachings of the Bible and focus on Jesus Christ as a liberating figure. That God sent his Son to earth to liberate the poor from misery, deprivation, and violence. And that the church has for too long aligned itself with the rich. And what the church needs to do is begin to align itself with the poor. And it was an entire theology that emerged around this, and books were written, and conferences were given, and thousands of books. Ultimately, I spent 9 years of my life studying liberation theology because I was so fascinated by all of these Catholics, and then also some Protestants, who were taking the words of the New Testament Bible, the words of Jesus, and focusing on that Jesus really is here to help the poor. And then I said, okay, so these people, it turns out, were supporters of liberation theology. And I think they were murdered because they supported this Christian ideology of Jesus came to earth to support the poor. And they were murdered by their governments, by their militaries. And I think that's really radical because they're murdering Christians, and not just Christians, like good Christians. So I then am the age of most of you having to figure this out. I'm not even Catholic. I wasn't even Christian at this time. I was an atheist. I was just intrigued with Christianity, with this beautiful philosophy and beautiful theology, which to me, in my mind, was the best of anything I'd ever seen come out of Christianity. And I started discovering all of the inequality in Latin America. And that the vast majority of the land and the resources is owned by a very, very small number of people. I discovered all of these U.S. companies and corporations who are involved. One being the United Fruit Company. And these are just all of their plantations and what they were growing. And the United Fruit Company wanted all this land on which they could grow lots and lots of fruit, including, by the way, bro, Colombia here, you will notice, right? And so what they got to do, though, is get access to the land. And so what happens is, this is, by the way, really a key thing to understand if you want to get U.S. any kind of foreign policy. So imagine that all of us, I say, listen, man, we got to get everybody's cell phones because we just need, I want their cell phones because I can sell their cell phones and I can get a lot of money. Now, you all are part of the class. You're the other students in the class. And I'm not in the class. I'm an outsider. But I'm like, I want you to get me the cell phones. And so how am I going to get you to get me their cell phones? You need some kind of incentive, right? So let's say I just give you a whole bunch of money. And that's a lot less money than I'm going to get when you give me all their cell phones. But nonetheless, for you, it's a lot of money. Now, you could just take that money and you could just distribute it. But you're the rulers, right? You're the people in control. You are the elites. So you got to get all these people right here to give up their cell phones. And so I give you the money, and then I just leave. It's like, whatever you want to do, just here's the money. Go get their cell phones. The first thing you're going to have to do is say, how are we going to get them to give up their cell phones? So what you do is maybe you get your thugs over here. And you get your thugs to just go around the room and you just get everybody's cell phone. And they're going to have to give up their cell phone. And those who resist, you just take them out. And they're never seen again. And eventually they'll stop resisting. And eventually you'll have all the cell phones. You give me the cell phones. You come find me. You give me the cell phones. You keep all the money that I promised you. And you're all good. You still stay rich. You have your military right here. Let's say that these all are your thugs who are doing the hard work for you. They're protecting you because these people will take you out. But they won't because they don't have anything, and these people are going to protect you, and that's how it operates. And that's how the United States operated. And we needed the resources. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, you remember this slide I showed early in the semester when I talked about Afghanistan? There was this movement. All the blue is the capitalist countries of the West, and the red is the communist countries of the East. And we're fighting the communist countries. And here's the deal. When you go back, once you get their cell phones, eventually they're going to rise up. And eventually, the more we take, the more they're going to start to rise up. And you're going to need something in order to put them down. You're going to have strong militaries. Me, if I'm getting something out of it, I'm going to just send you more and more so that you can keep putting them down. They, by contrast, are sitting out here going like, hey, this is a really unfair system, man. We got to do something about this. Like, come on, man, let's agitate. Come on, let's go. And then we're going to start going here, and we're going to look, hey, wait, here's another philosophy. This isn't this evil capitalist nonsense. Here's a different philosophy. Because it's like Jesus Christ didn't come for the church elites. Jesus Christ came for the poor. And so we out here start talking about Jesus Christ the liberator, right? Jesus Christ is like, we're all Christians. And so Jesus didn't come to represent these assholes up here. Jesus came to represent us. So if people are happy, if you're not taking their cell phones, if you're actually treating them well, they're never going to rise up against you, and you don't need an army. But if you're not treating them well, then they're going to start to rise up. It's basic. You got it?